Hi, I'm Nate and you're watching Photolearningism. Wanted to continue our mini-series on when should I use ... Tonight we're going to dig into GIMP. There's a feature I found which is really intriguing, which I haven't seen discussed a lot of places. I haven't found it yet. Maybe somebody has. But in any case, I'm going to talk about it tonight. Can't wait to get to it. Thank you so much for joining in. If this is your first time or if you're a repeat, thank you so much. I really love it that you're finding value in these, that you want to keep coming back and joining the conversation. If you're new, I welcome you to do the same. Join the conversation and see the different cheap or free art technologies that are valuable and are readily at your fingertips to use in your art endeavors. So thank you so much for being here. GIMP, when should I use it? Let's get started. All right, so digging into GIMP here, there are a couple of use cases that I found to be best. Leaning back on the last video where we kicked this series with when do I use paint.net, which is a fantastic tool, by the way. This particular one, it does boast a lot of different uses I know of. If we go look up on the site, because I remember it had a quick run through of all the things it's intended to do. Let's just take a look. Let's see here. Yep, graphic design, photographer, illustrator, scientist. That's an interesting one. So I guess those are the main venues they're looking to capture in this tool. And the ones that I think you'll get the most value, I'm not sure how scientist applies. If you know, let me know. Is that you could cover graphic designer and illustrator. And I do believe you could get some use as a photographer out of this with some caveats, but I'll touch on that in a moment. But it's definitely stronger, I think, for the graphic designer and illustrator. Let's see why. So, starting with that use case, graphic designer, illustrator. I have some blank canvases set up here. This kind of wowed me because I hadn't seen this in another tool before, in that, sure, you can see the fancy brushes, you can see these nifty textures and things that you can paint with and do some cool things with. But what I hadn't seen before is if we kick off a new layer here and I start off with something here. Let's say I'm just going to make a very simple pattern here, and red is a little bit bold. Let's tone that down a little bit. But let's go red, and I am just going to see if we can create some gaps here, not going for perfection, just so much as an example here, but I want to go for the fill tool from there and do that. So now what we can do is go back to our selection and grab that, and the moment that I do a keyboard cut command, Control X, a very interesting thing happens here, in that it creates a brush out of it. Now that's very interesting. I can take that brush and I can do all kinds of interesting things. If I could get rid of the selector, of course. There we go. So I can use that pattern to paint with, which is really, really interesting. And you can change it up a little bit on the left side here with the options. You can do the jitter to give it a little bit of variation, or you could keep it as it was. And you can kind of see how that shakes out. You can play with the spacing and the hardness, and you can do all that to give it some different feel. And there's a couple other options here as well on the bottom, adjusting the stroke, some of the dynamics. Really, really intriguing option here where you can make your own brushes on the fly. If you wanted to design a texture and then paint something with that, you could do that very simply in this GIMP tool, and that's a very powerful option when you're talking graphic design, when you're talking illustration, to be able to do that. It could save you a load of time. Like, let's say you wanted to even start with a base image. You went out and took a picture of something, of rock. You really wanted to paint rock onto something without having to worry about capturing certain pieces of it. You could suck it into this. You could grab the section of it you like, and away you go. You could paint that texture onto something, which is really awesome. I can give some good credit to the development teams on that one, because that's really innovative, and I love seeing innovation within these free open source things. That's excellent. So go check that out. That's pretty cool. I'm not going to dig through so much of all the different click and different tools and things, because that takes a lot of getting used to. And I will say that that's probably one of my biggest criticisms of this tool, which I've touched on. I won't dwell on that right now. It is very difficult to get a handle on how things function because it's not very intuitive the way the controls work. Having said that, having spent some time using it, I do see the power within here. Okay, if you can brute force your way past some of the difficulties of learning it, there is some good power here. All right, so check out some of the illustrative capabilities. I found it very easy once I started getting through some of my learning curves to begin trying some of these things out and actually create what I felt were some convincing and realistic pieces of art. So play around with it. I'm not going to demonstrate everything here, but play around with it. I do think there's a strong use case for it. For photographers, this is where it can work, but it's not its strongest suit, in that you have to have a third-party loader to work with raw images. That's a little bit of a nuisance. It's not insurmountable, but it's a little bit of a nuisance coming into the product. You can get Darktable, you can get Raw Therapy. Those are both fantastic preloaders that have a bunch of their own tonal controls, and those by themselves, by the way, are awesome. Go check those out. But you can use those as a raw importer into GIMP, and GIMP, once you get it in there, again, having gotten past some of the learning curve, there are some good options for working on your photo. You do have your usual clone and heal tools, and those are somewhat intuitive once you start to figure out where they are and where the options are. Also, you can get some similar tonal controls, but you're probably better off doing those in Raw Therapy or Darktable, honestly, to pre-tune the image before you load it in, because they're not quite as strong in this tool. And to be fair, the tonal controls are not really good in most image editor tools once you get to that point. That's why Darktable and Raw Therapy are so powerful, is that they have a good handle on those aspects. So that aside, GIMP can handle some of your alteration, some of your touch-up beyond that point. What you're looking at here is I added an overlay to somewhat intensify the colors. I've touched on that approach before. Depending on what you're looking to do with it at this stage, the controls are there. I'd invite you to go play around and check it out. I'm not going to do a full tutorial here, but I did want you to see some of the best use cases that come out of this for this. I don't think that photo touch-up is necessarily its strongest suit, but it can handle some of those out-of-the-box things that you might be looking for once you get past the interface. By far, the strongest aspect of this tool will be the illustrative and graphic design pieces of that. So definitely go download it. Go try it out. If you want to try out raw images, again, you will need either Darktable or Raw Therapy or a compatible loader. But again, they're not that difficult to set up and install, and they work pretty seamlessly once they're there. So definitely go try this out. Thank you so much for joining in for this. I really hope that offered some value into your pursuits of finding a tool that's going to suit your needs wherever you're coming from. Don't hesitate to drop a comment and let me know your situation and maybe how the community can help you. If this was helpful, please do give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I'd love to have you back to join in the future parts of this mini-series of When Should I Use. Thank you so much. Take care.